From Yosemite, we headed to Kings Canyon and Sequoia National Parks, which is approximately a 3-hour drive.
When we got to Kings Canyon, we walked through a place called the Giant Forest. Along the trail, we saw a tree that had an opening at the bottom of its trunk. We stepped inside, and I realized it was the size of a small cabin.
We weren't the only early risers on this beautiful morning. We saw a chipmunk stretching to start his day and a gray squirrel having breakfast. Then we came across a sign that directed us to a fallen tree. This tree had been used as an employee camp back in 1890. Early visitors and settlers to this area could find shelter in fire-hollowed trees like this. We were sure that bears and other creatures most likely used them as well. As we explored inside, we found it was even bigger than imagined, and we could better understand how two early homesteaders had used this very log as a house and a saloon to serve visitors to the area. It was so big that the U.S. Cavalry once used the tree as a stable for their horses as well.
And then I saw one of the biggest trees I've ever seen. I couldn't believe a tree could get so big. It made me feel really small. I had so many questions about these trees called sequoias. So my mom and dad introduced me to Frank Helling. He's a park ranger here who knows a lot about these trees.
Well, Amelia, this is a giant sequoia.
Frank, how old do sequoia trees get?
Well, Amelia, in 1892, they cut down a giant sequoia and sent it to the Chicago World's Fair. And then 20-some-odd years later, when they counted the rings on the stump, they found that they'd cut down a 3,200-year-old tree. Come on over here, Amelia, and feel this bark.
Hey, it feels like styrofoam.
Well, in some ways, it is like styrofoam. It's not very dense, so it's going to keep the heat from getting inside of the tree from a forest fire. And also, it's high in tannic acid, which they use in fire extinguishers, so that protects the tree from a forest fire.
These trees are so huge that I bet it takes a gigantic seed to make it grow.
Well, actually, here's a sequoia cone. Here's a sequoia seed.
Whoa, I didn't know that something so small can make something so big.
Actually, most of that seed is wing, and the actual seed is just that little line right down the middle that has all the instructions for that little seed to grow 3 billion times larger to become this great tree.
How did General Sherman the sequoia get its name?
Well, it was named by Thomas Wolverton, who was a young Army officer during the Civil War. He was an early settler in the giant forest, and his commanding officer was William Tecumseh Sherman. And I don't know if you know this, but the Sherman tree is the biggest living thing on our planet. It's 35 feet wide, 275 feet tall, and contains 52,500 cubic feet of wood.
How did General Grant become the national Christmas tree?
Well, in 1925, there was a girl probably about your age standing near the General Grant tree with her parents, and she happened to comment, "Why, this looks just like a big Christmas tree." And Charles Lee, the president of the Sanger Chamber of Commerce, overheard her, and when he got home, he wrote a letter to the President of the United States. And so the President declared it the nation's Christmas tree.
Thank you so much for answering all my questions.
Well, thank you, Amelia, and please come back to the park. There are many more wonders here to be seen.
I would like that.
Okay.